Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead video. So I wanted to do another Q&A video here, and first of all, thank you so much for all of your questions. Definitely go and follow the Discord, or I guess join the Discord. The server name is Appetite for the Dead. The link for it will be in the description of this video. I ask for questions every single week, and I usually do my Q&As every single Wednesday. This week, we're going to be focusing a lot on Comic-Con and some of the reaction to the trailer and certain storylines from that and some of the information that we learned. So definitely make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all my Walking Dead content like this. Q&A, would you like to see a Walking Dead spinoff set in London? Yeah, absolutely. Like, honestly, I love when The Walking Dead goes to, like, different places in general. Like, I know Dead City is technically not, like, in Europe, and it's not somewhere that different, but it does still feel different being in New York City. Like, it does feel different from a lot of what we got in the past, you know, because they didn't really visit a lot of cities a lot. Like, obviously Atlanta was a city, but like they were really just in Alexandria or the Commonwealth, or they were like in the woods a lot, you know, like we didn't really get to see a lot of, you know, city environments and have stories set in like different places. It was always sort of in the same place, right? And so it's really cool to see Dead City in New York City, to see Daryl Dixon in France, and now eventually in Spain, which I will also point out, I'm going to be doing a season 3 video. I don't know when, at some point this week, I'm sure. And I really want to talk about some of the details that we learned about season 3, because I was actually watching an interview in which the showrunner was asked, like, why do they go to Spain in season 3? And his response was really interesting. And I'm really curious as to what the story is actually going to be like here for season 2, and if Daryl and Carol actually do decide to like go back to America, but eventually, you know, they end up in Spain, and there's something that happens with the story as to why that happens. And according to what he was saying anyways, France and Spain are really close together, so it kind of makes sense. Like, it's just, you're not going that far, but it's just another opportunity to explore, you know, another place. And yeah, but his comments just regarding season 3, and we also got a synopsis for season 3 as well, but it's very, very, like, it doesn't really give a lot of details away. Like, that's why, like, for me, I haven't really done a video on it yet, because I think the response is going to be, why are you doing a season 3 video when season 2 hasn't even aired yet? But obviously not spoiling anything at all of what happens in season 2 here. So yeah, I'm excited for newer locations, and obviously for Daryl Dixon, they're going to be focused, you know, I guess in Spain for season 3 and 4, and then we'll see what happens for like season 5 and 6, or however long they go for. And the reason why I say that is because they were joking during one of the interviews, I don't know if it was during Comic-Con, they were joking about like season 8 or something like that. Yeah, I think it was Comic-Con actually. It was during the panel in Hall H, and they were joking around about season 8 and like this and that happening. And so to me, you know, it makes sense that the show's probably going to go on for like that long, which honestly I don't really have an issue with, because to me, I think the show, like the storylines are really incredible. And as long as they keep the variant Walker stuff going, and they keep like advancing the Walkers in that direction and changing the rules of survival, people are going to keep wanting this, right? Like, people really like that survival aspect to a lot of this here. And if you're exploring newer locations, like, that just makes it overall fun, especially like in terms of a reunion with Rick and whatnot. But we'll talk about that and some of the other questions here. So Q&A. Would you like to see Bruegel team up with either Maggie or Negan at some point? I know you said you haven't seen Sons of Anarchy, but I think Kim Coates' emotional acting was when he was best. So I'd like to see a redemption arc for his character, since we know he is meant to be a villain. With all these villains to different extents, example, Dama, Negan, Croat, Bruegel, Armstrong, who do you see being redeemed, and who do you see as the true end game? So I guess like the true villains in the end, I'm guessing you're saying. I mean, yeah, I know Sons of Anarchy. I know I hear so much about that show. I always wanted to watch it, and all I've ever heard was just really amazing things about Kim Coates. And as soon as I heard that he was, you know, joining the show, I was like, this is so perfect for Dead City. It's insane. In terms of all the characters that you're saying, like which characters end up being, you know, I guess the real villain, it's really hard to say, because the Dama, I mean, I guess you would want to pick the Dama as probably the real main villain here. I don't know a lot of her backstory. I don't know anything about her really, besides what we got in the very, you know, last episode there of Dead City season 1. But ignoring her for a second, you know, Negan, obviously, I don't think he's going to be the real villain, because we sort of know that, you know, there is a redemption arc there a little bit, but it looks like Negan in this season, you know, there's going to be this love-hate relationship with Lucille. And I think he's going to discover that, you know, because he's been on this redemption arc for a while. I think once he gets Lucille back, he's going to realize that, like, oh, wow, I can do so much when I have Lucille. But then I think there's going to be this whole other side to him that's like, I don't know if I should be doing this. But then, you know, so I think that's going to be a big storyline for him in season 2. In terms of the Croat, I heard the actor talking a lot about, I think the character also learning a lot more about himself and realizing, you know, some of the things that he's doing. And, you know, I think there could be a redemption arc there as well. Bruegel, it is hard to say, because we don't know anything about the character yet. And again, if they don't get into some of the redemption arc with him yet or anything like that, I think it's because maybe they'll do that in a season 3 or 4, right? Like, this is going to be the first season we see him in, so it's probably going to be an introduction to just him in general. So I don't know about Bruegel, I can't really say, but they are saying that he is the main villain this season. So, you know, I could see him potentially, I guess, being that. And then in terms of Armstrong, I just feel like, you know, the group that he's with is going to be, like, it's a little more complex, but where I see it going is, yes, it seems like he kind of was the villain in a sense in season 1. I think that the group that he's a part of, New Babylon, they're going to be more the villains, I feel like, this season, or at least one of the villains this season. And obviously, you know, I think the question of, you know, does he still, you know, side with them at the end of the day, I think that's going to be really the determining factor here as to, you know, whether or not he's a villain. And I feel like for Armstrong, he's eventually going to break away from that, because that's a character that is just like, he follows the rules all the time. And I think he's going to be like, why am I doing this? Like, they shouldn't be doing that. And I think he might break away from that. And so I don't think he will be a villain. I actually think he's going to be probably a hero in this story here. I mean, eventually, obviously. Like, I think the one thing about Dead City is that, you know, they talked about that a lot in season 1, which is like the gray area, right? Like, the story is not going to be so black and white. Like, you have a hero and you have a villain. There's a lot of complexity to these characters, and they seem to really focus on that. So I think that's going to be really what they focus on here for Dead City season 2. And so out of all the characters that I talked about, I feel like the Dama and Bruegel really are the only two where I could see them being the main villains. But I would say, because they said Bruegel is the main villain, just in terms of the casting announcement, I'm just going to say I think he probably will be. Q&A, do you think Negan will keep the new Lucille for good? And are you still working out, trying to stay healthy? Love your content, bless you and the family. Well, I wasn't expecting the question to go in that direction, but yes, actually, things have been going really good in terms of that. Things have been kind of quieter for a bit, or for a couple of months of this year anyways, but things really started to pick up as the summer, you know, actually happened, and things have been going really good in that sense there. I haven't really been wanting to do an update yet, because I'm waiting to actually lose a lot more weight, and then I'll do an update. But yeah, in terms of staying healthy and all that, yeah, you know, I'm taking care of myself so much better than I have in the last couple of years, and I'm very, very, I guess, proud of myself. And in terms of your first question, do you think Negan will keep the new Lucille for good? I think that definitely it will be a thing for a while, because fans really like the old Negan. That was a big focus during the panel at Comic-Con. They talked about that a lot, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan even brought that up. He was like, yeah, because fans, you know, they really love the old Negan, and everyone cheered, and it was like, yeah, I don't know what it is. I think it really is because that character is just so cool. Like, it really comes down to that. You know, I think some people like the more emotional journey, this and that, but generally people just like to have fun whenever they're watching a TV show or a movie. And so I think just that character being, you know, who he is, and, you know, who we first saw him as, I think fans just really like that. So I think that him getting Lucille back, it would be a big mistake for him to lose Lucille immediately in season 2. And I think where they're going to go here is that he learns to accept Lucille as just a weapon that, you know, gives him strength, literally. I know that's a line that he always says, like, Lucille, give me strength, or whatever he says, but I think he's going to accept the fact that, you know, that is something that I think is going to happen, and I think that, yeah, that's probably going to be the weapon that he uses for, you know, for a while. And I don't know if they'll ever really go back on it. I think going back on it right away, like, just literally in season 2, like, you bring Lucille back and then Lucille gets destroyed again. Like, you kind of did that before. I think keep Lucille around for a while. I think that would be a lot of fun. Q&A, do you think the Daryl and Carol reunion is going to be better than the Rick and Michonne reunion? Oh, that is such a hard thing to answer. I mean, it depends. I think that it's hard to say. I feel like the thing about the Rick and Michonne reunion is that there was so much more, like, emotional depth to it, because Michonne thought Rick was dead for so long, and then she found out that Rick was alive, and then to actually see him, and Rick went through such a dark story, and then eventually, you know, actually before he even found her, like, he literally got to the point where he was like, you know what, I'm never going to see her again, and I am now dead to them, and I'm just going to move on. Like, that is such a crazy place to get to mentally. And so, you know, their reunion was just amazing. And I just, you know, for Carol and Daryl, I'm not saying their scene's not going to be good. Obviously, I think the reunion between those two is going to be amazing. And I feel like it's going to be a lot similar to, I mean, I think that's what I'm hoping for anyways, you know, to their season 5 reunion, because Carol left, obviously, for a bit. And then, you know, she came back and Daryl was just so happy. And I think it could be done in a way that's very similar to that. But I just think what happened between Rick and Michonne and why Rick was gone for so long, like that is just, there's a lot more there. Like I could definitely see this being better if Carol thought Daryl was dead for so long and this was Daryl's return. And, you know, like I could definitely see a lot of us talking like, oh, Carol and Daryl are about to reunite. Like, you know, she thought Daryl died so many years ago, this and that. Like definitely I could see that argument. Like maybe there was a chance then, but I think because of the situation. But I'm not saying this scene won't be as good or this and that. I just think the moment and what it means, there's just no way it can be better, right? So Q&A. From the trailer, there seems to be a ton of variants out and about. I think Madame Janae's team may have found a way for the variants to spread a different strain of the virus onto humans they bite, or maybe even normal walkers. This would be why Daryl and Carol run to Spain. If we end up getting this, how would the variants affect the future of the Walking Dead universe? I would really love that. And I do think they are going to play a big role in terms of why they lose the nest and why they have to actually go to Spain. Like, I think that makes a lot of sense, because why wouldn't you just stay at the nest? I mean, I think that there's going to be some drama that happens there, a bunch of stuff with, you know, Losang and some of that. But I just think that the nest is going to completely just be overrun with these new variants. And you know, I think that that is the direction that they should go in with The Walking Dead, is that the normal zombies, I think, are just going to start to turn into these variant walkers. And I think that this will just eventually be, you know, the more dominant walker out there. And obviously we're seeing it right now. It's just sort of an introduction to that. But I think that this is where it's going. I think the big question, though, is like, how do you get the variants to America, right? Because obviously it's happening over there. Maybe that happens in Spain and everywhere else. But like, how do you get the variants to America? That's where it's going to change a lot, and that's going to be really insane. And I could just totally see, like, obviously not in a season 3 or 4, but in a season 5, if they come back to America and the variants follow them somehow, right? Like, I don't know if it's Madame Janae following them. I'm not sure what the storyline is going to be at that point, but the second that we see that, and I can just picture a post-credit scene being like that at some point in the future where, you know, Daryl and Carol end up back in America, and then at some point there's a reveal that the variant is actually in America. And now, I mean, this is going to cause a lot, right? Like, that's actually going to cause such a big issue for everybody, because that is very, very dangerous. And yeah, I mean, I see The Walking Dead, you know, that's where they're going to go in the future, because I think, you know, in terms of writing The Walking Dead, and I feel like this is sort of what Gimple also, you know, he deals with a lot, is just like, how do I advance the story and keep making it fresh and very exciting? And that's why I'm so happy that, like, David Zabel, who's the showrunner for Daryl Dixon, right? And then you have Eli Journe, who's the showrunner for Dead City. Like, you have, you know, different voices in the Walking Dead universe now, and they have all these opinions on where they should go next. And you heard Nicotero talking about, like, changing the rules once in a while. I think that AMC is also looking at that too, and is like, we need to make this more exciting as, you know, time goes on, because we want people to keep watching, obviously. Like, that's, you know, they're a media business, obviously, right? Like, they have this really successful media franchise, The Walking Dead. Like, you do want to make it really exciting, but you don't want to, like, jump everywhere and make everything about variants and have these bigger storylines and making everything so crazy, because that could also ruin The Walking Dead, right? So I think slowly, here and there, they're going to be doing a lot of this stuff. And again, Negan, I think that's why he has Lucille, and they're going to start, you know, focusing on that a little bit in Dead City. And I think just, you know, I think it makes sense. Like, that's the stuff that you want to do, because you want to make it exciting. And so, you know, I think in 10 years from now, are we going to have the same old, like, walkers on The Walking Dead? I think, you know, obviously that will always kind of be a thing, but I think the variant walkers and changing the rules up here and there makes everything really fresh and exciting. That's why I think The Walking Dead is going to continue to be very successful. So, yeah, but thank you guys so much for posting all of your questions. Honestly, it was a really awesome Q&A. I hope you guys all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.